children are more resilient than we give them credit for.
Absolutely.
More than we credit for.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just a crazy sick story. And I've seen the end result of that or whatever, as far as how a lot of times when you take a father out of a boy's life, what the end result of that is, it unleashes, like I said earlier, literally hellish effects on society. Boys that are hurt become men that hurt society, period. What's up, everybody? Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast so far. Stay tuned for part two. I've been loving this episode, and I hope that you have been as well, okay? Stay tuned, all right? Happy Father's Day.
They can work it out so the boys can spend time with their dad, their biological father. Why not? I mean, why not? Because, I mean, they can. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for.
Absolutely.
More than we credit for.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just a crazy sick story. And I've seen the end result of that or whatever, as far as how a lot of times when you take a father out of a boy's life, what the end result of that is, it unleashes, like I said earlier, literally hellish effects on society. Boys that are hurt become men that hurt society, period.
Hurt people.
Lady, I sincerely hope you change your mindset one day.
Yeah.
In keeping with that, actually, I'll actually going to skip a couple of questions. Let me ask this. What advice would you give young men out here who are actually looking for a father figure? Where can they find one? Let's say their father was murdered. Let's say something was taken out of their life. Where would you tell young men to actually find a father? Because I've seen people have asked me this question actually before, guys I play ball with and stuff.
The very first thing, that if the young man has help and find someone that can be a mentor to them, make sure that person has been vetted, because of all the stupid things that are going on in America today with how children are being abused physically, emotionally, sexually, and all that stuff. So make sure that person is vetted. An individual that's looking for a father figure, they're not going to find it out in the streets. They're not going to find that person out in the streets. So there are organizations. There are male mentoring organizations. There are fraternities. The fraternity that I'm associated with, I'm in. That's what we do. We mentor young men in these schools here in High Point, and in Greensboro. Churches, especially, and churches, they have been culprits too. So make sure that they're vetted. Social organizations, your friends who have fathers that would take them up under their wings and be a father to them, like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
He had two dads. He had a poor dad who was a professor, and a rich dad who showed him all the ins and about the financial quadrant.
Just to jump into there, guys, I can just say this from my own experience. I had teammates that say, "Yeah, Chris, your dad is like my father." I've had cousins that say, "Yeah, your dad basically was my Uncle Norman was the father I never had." I've been out and about with my pops before. I've had kids that he taught 20 years ago say, "Yeah, what's up, Mr. Phelps? You were my dad." So to the people out there, yes, you can find father figure sometime in a pastor. You can find it in a coach. You can find it pretty much in an uncle. You can find it in an older brother. Sometimes you can find it in the military. So like you said, it is possible if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. A story real quick. My second to my last year at Dudley High School, one of our boys played baseball. He got a baseball scholarship to NC State. He also got academic scholarships to NC State. And he said, Mr. Phelps, he said, let me ask you a question. One of the questions that's on this resume, on this application is, who is my greatest mentor? And I told him, I said, who do you think who it should be? And he said, my dad, even though his baseball coach was there all the time for him. And the day of the graduation, when he said his greatest mentor in his life was his father broke down. Just melted his heart, because he saw that all the stuff he taught his child, the coaches he put him before, the teachers he put him before, the counselors, the number one person that mentored him was his dad. And his father just broke down, and it was beautiful to see. But go ahead, Chris. I just want to share that with you.
No, that's the kind of stories that I like to hear. And actually keeping in line with that, right now, television, social media, they constantly pretty much show black men kind of one way. We're either effeminate, we're either weak, we're unemployed, we're dumb, we're either thugs, we're womanized, we're entertainers, we're lazy. That's pretty much the only way. I mean, there are obviously exceptions to it on television, but in general, the way social media portrays African-American men is almost always insanely negative, and it's always in terrible lights. Do you think America has an agenda to destroy the image of Black men today? And if so, how can we change it? I would say.
In short, I'd say yes. And then to expand on that answer, it's no different than it has been in times past. America has always wanted to destroy the image of the Black male, from the Willie Lynch letter to D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. And all those that are not familiar with the Willie Lynch letter, get that letter and read it. You can download it. You can Google it. Willie Lynch from Virginia, during slavery, he lived like in the 17 and 1800s. He said, take the biggest Black African buck, tie him to a pole, and bring the rest of the Black slave population into that area so he can see it, and beat him until he dies. And then take the next big Black buck and beat him to 1 inch of his life. What that did, two main things it did. It intimidated the Black culture, and it showed the Black culture that the Black man cannot protect you. And then with Birth of a Nation, and there was a president back then, I'm glad he took his name off the Wilson.
Woodrow Wilson.
I'm glad he took his name off that bridge. But the Birth of a Nation, the very first images, it showed the KKK being the saviors of American culture, which really was native. Well, and that's a whole nother ball game about the indigenous people that were here first. But it showed Blacks being lazy, Blacks being dumb, Blacks had sexual prowess over all the white women in America. It showed the mulatto that was depressed and suicidal. It showed them wanting to eat watermelon all the time. It just painted nothing but negative images. And then you go through Step and Fetch It and some of the others and all these who characterize these images of Black people until the Black exploitation movies of the 70s. And now America wants to paint an image of Black men not being the male dominating figures that they are. The Samuel L. Jacksons and you know the others, the Denzel Washingtons, the strong figures like that. Then they're replacing them with individuals that are not as tall. As a matter of fact, the majority of commercials and the majority of movies that are made, you'll always see the majority of Black people shorter than the mainstream Americans. And in commercials, we're always, not always, but the majority of times we are consumers more than sitting at the heads of the table making plans and marketing and making products.
We're never leaders. We're always consumers. We're never running a company. Always.
So to answer that question, it's nothing new under the sun. I mean, it's always been to castrate the Black race from its natural born leader. Every country that has been on the face of this planet, I mean, there have been female leaders like the Queen of Sheba, Cleopatra, Queen Elizabeth,
Angela Merkel out of Germany. Yeah.
Those individuals, but it was still always a male-dominated society. And so when you take the males out of a society, and then you say they can't protect us, they can't provide for us, they can't lead us, the same things I said fathers are supposed to do, lead, provide, and protect, then who are they going to turn to? The very ones that are saying they can't do these things for you. Subject yourselves to us, and by any means necessary, destroy that image. And so it's up to us as a community, when we see that happening, you don't want to be negative about it, because God loves everybody. He loves all people. He just hates the sin. Even those that have done atrocities to other people, God still loves the Hitlers and the Mussolinis and the Christopher Columbuses of the world, you know, those kinds of people. So I say this, when we see an individual that's like that, they don't care how much you know, so they know how much you care.
All right.
They're not gonna, you can't change them. You just have to share with them, and hopefully what you say to them through God's Holy Spirit will help to change their way of thinking. Right. And it's not about always the money, because Hollywood will do everything to destroy people just to get them. All these people that are out there in Hollywood, the majority of them, they have sacrificed parts of their integrity. Not all of them. I'm just saying many of them have sacrificed their morals, their ethics, and their integrity to be put on the big screen.
Yeah. I remember growing up, like I was seeing guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Carl Weathers or I forgot the guy from Good Times, William Aber, I think his name was. Just very, not even necessarily just black guys, just very masculine, just not even necessarily ones that are chiseled, but just very masculine images of men on television. Even as late as like 2001, there was a show called 101 where they had a single black father that was making very good money because his wife, but he had to raise his daughter because his wife got I think she got a medical position overseas, like in Europe somewhere. So he stepped in to raise his daughter, and it was a very good show. But as recently as 2001, you had stuff like The Best Man, you had The Brothers, you had basic images of highly successful brothers. And nowadays, every image I see on black, I mean, I don't see myself on television. I mean, I'm a tall, athletic, heterosexual black man that's dominating corporate America, and I very rarely see that on television. From a number standpoint, we're always either portrayed as like thugs or as athletes, and there's nothing statistically accurate about any of this stuff. Like, for instance, 42,000 black men in America right now. This is just black men. 42,000 black men in America are lawyers. 26,000 black men in America right now are registered doctors. 130,000 black men in America are like myself, are engineers. 80,000 black men are scientists. Less than 300 black men are in the NBA. Less than 1,000 black men are in the NFL. And there are less than 1,000 black men that are signed to record labels as rappers. So basically, there are over 300,000 black men that are scientists, lawyers, doctors, and engineers that are black men. And there are less than 2,000 black men that are rappers or athletes.
Entertainers.
Entertainers, yeah. But on television, they only show brothers as dumb athletes or as dumb rappers. So think about that for a minute. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous when you think about just kind of some of the crazy narratives that are pretty much out there. And even the whole concept about us making babies. 60% of black men are single, don't have kids, and are in the middle class. Almost 5%, over 5% of us make over 5% of black men make over $100,000. So 65% of black men are either make over $100,000 and they're or they're in the middle class. 65%, but America never shows that. And that's why I say sometimes we got to kind of sit back and say, okay, where is this quote unquote strong, independent woman stuff coming from? Because what you described with that Willie Lynch letter, this whole toxic feminist idea that kind of is going around right now, that's what it's doing. It's taking the man out of the household. And what's even crazier about it is, once again, this is financiation. I like to look at numbers. The poorest demographic in America is a single mother, period. So this whole idea about be a strong, independent person and be a single parent, you're cursing yourself basically to be the poorest demographic in the country if you want to do that. It's just kind of something I think you should kind of think about. Think about where this crap is coming from about be strong, independent, be tough. That's not the way you basically want that. There's nothing feminine about that, and there's also nothing intelligent. You're hurting your children.
Yeah. Those are on point figures, Chris, and that's the reason why each one has to reach one. We know that the mainstream media is painting these pictures so that they can continue to control the narrative. And so in times past, what I've done, especially when I was in high school, and even when I was substitute teaching, when individuals would give me the stereotypical careers, the stereotypical mindsets and jobs, then I would share with them what I know from a personal standpoint. I would tell them about the young man that was at Dudley High School, and every year when I was at Dudley High School, instead of them they got more academic scholarships every year going up than they did academic, and more than they did athletic scholarships. I would tell them about the young men that I knew that decided to change their lifestyle because of what they saw the teachers at Dudley do, because they saw that they never fall down that athletic road. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see anybody make it in life with the skill sets that they have. Use it if you can, but if not, make sure that you have other areas of avenue. And so I would tell them every chance I get, I brag on Darius. I brag on Norman. I brag on Chris. I brag on Larita. I brag on Calvin. I brag on you guys and tell them, oh, such and such. Oh yeah, my son does this. He works in corporate America where he helps insurance claims and stuff like that. Yeah, my daughter, she writes books. Yeah, I have sons. Well, I have a son that designs jet engines. One is an architectural engineer or a mechanical engineer that designs all kinds of buildings and puts HVAC units in the buildings. And I got one that sends stuff out into space. And it wasn't no baby, and they don't have no baby mama drama. And so I share with them on purpose. Now I'm going to impress upon us, but to impress them, let them know the stereotypes that you're seeing on television is not true of every Black American in America. And so everybody in my neighborhood knows what you guys have done. I love y'all, but I even love to tell them what you all have done and are accomplishing. And I also do that in the school systems. I tell these little kids, like I remember one time Calvin came to Montlou at a fifth grade graduation and shared with them how to be an engineer. Norman mentored kids. You had you guys mentoring kids while you were even in college to show them that they can be able whatever they want to be. All you gotta do is just put in the work. If they're gonna just put in the work. And so the only way to negate that narrative is to share the true narrative with everybody we meet. And yeah, they may get it out quicker and faster. And we know a lie go around the world 1,000 times before the truth even gets out of bed. But just keep sharing the truthful narrative, and it's gonna it catches on to somebody. And if it reaches one person, you don't know if that person can change the whole world, because one person changes one person's life in the book of Acts, and that guy he turned the whole world upside down. When Stephen was stoned in the book of Acts, they laid his garments at Saul's feet, and Saul became Paul. And look what he did in the Christian world. Not cultural Christianity again, but biblical Christianity. And so all we can do is tell the narrative and make sure that enough people hear it so that they can either reiterate it or try to live it.
Absolutely. I got another question, Pops, from a client listener of mine. I want to ask it. Something happened and my baby mama is not letting me see my son. I grew up without a dad and I want to be a father, but the courts gave custody to my baby mama and she moved halfway across the country. I want to be in my son's life, but I don't want to be with the baby's mother. What advice would you give me? Because I want to give my son something I never had, which is a father.
Wow. That is deep on every level. First of all, he didn't have a father in his life. He doesn't want that. He does not want the same thing to happen to his own son. And then he has a mother. The mother does not want him to be involved in the baby's life. The only thing he can keep on doing is keep on living his life. The doors that God opens, no man can close, and the doors that God closes, no man can open. Let that individual continue to be the best version of himself. Keep asking God to share with him opportunities, so that those opportunities and those experiences will get back to that baby's mama. And maybe one day, you never know, because if God can touch people's lives like he's done in times past, he can touch his baby's, this guy's mother's, this child's mother in the same way. I don't have an answer for that. All I can do is keep on living his life and keep on praying and keep on believing God, because God did not want the family to be destroyed or separated. That's not his design for humanity.
Absolutely. What I'll tell you, bro, is this: become as successful as you possibly can be. Become the best version of yourself. Women are generally naturally attracted to men that are leaders. They're attracted to men that are providers. They're attracted to men that can protect them. It's literally been that way since the religious to the Garden of Eden. It's that way in history, basically. So become the best version of yourself, bro. If you're more of a blue collar dude, become that master electrician, that master plumber, that master auto mechanic. If you're more of a white collar brother, become that engineer, become that scientist, become that doctor, become that lawyer. Because eventually, with social media and just similar family members that you guys have, she's gonna find out, yo, this guy is very successful. He's doing very well. That's what I say. Become the best version of yourself. Find a good church home. Get your spiritual house in order. Take care of your body. Work out. But become the best version of yourself. And eventually, at some point, your son, because you said you're the son, yeah, your son is going to be 18. He's gonna start saying, "Mom, where's Dad? Mom, why'd you stop me from having a relationship with dad? And if your son pulls you up and you're married to another woman, you got a beautiful family with other people, and you're living in that, you're basically killing corporate America, you become the best version of yourself. Yet your son is going to say, Mom, why did you stop me from having a relationship with this man? Why did you stop me from having a relationship with my father? So I would say become the best version of yourself, bro.
Yeah.
That's what I would tell you.
Absolutely. And you know what, even if this individual does not make $300,000 or $500,000 a year, like you said, be the best version of yourself. Render service to people, help other people. Learn who you are after your 9 to 5. Work on your 5 after your 9 to 5. Work on your 5 to 9. And as you just said through saying, Chris, social media platforms, the boy is going to find out what his father's all about, and he's going to ask the questions. The questions are going to get asked whether we want to hear them or not. I got to ask the questions, and so all I'm saying is, be the best version of who you can be. And that son, eventually, if he cares about his blood lineage, he's going to come looking for his dad.
Just to give you a personal story as well, bro. A guy, I'm not gonna say his name because he hasn't given me permission to really bring up this story, but a guy I used to play sports with, he one night said, you know what, I'm gonna look up my dad. And his mother, his entire life, told him nothing but negative, horrible stories about his father. So he ended up looking up his father, found out his dad lived in Atlanta. And at the time, my buddy lived somewhere in the Northeast. So he hit his dad up and was just like, okay, why did you leave me? Why'd you leave? This is what I've done with my life. This is what I'm doing. Why'd you abandon me and mom? And this guy basically said, I never abandoned you. This is what really happened. And if you don't believe me, you can talk to your you can talk to your grandfather, because he was around when your mother kicked me out when your mother threw me out of your life. And my boy reached out to his grandfather. He called him Poppy. He said, Poppy, is this my dad? Yeah, that's your dad. What happened between him and mom? Because my entire life I heard nothing but horrible stories. And as it turns out, everything this guy's mom told him his whole life, 90% of it was not true. His brother drove down to Atlanta, got a chance to meet all of his half brothers and all of his half sisters. His father lives on a $500,000 home in Atlanta and is doing very well. And it was my boy is doing pretty good with him and his family. And this guy got to meet his grandchildren, and my boy got to meet his father. Wow. So it's a powerful story, people. And I'm not gonna say my boy's name because he hasn't given me permission to tell that story. But yeah, just become the best version of yourself, bro. If you need to move half across the country to be closer to your son, because I do think Black men in particular, you need to see your father as much as possible. If it's possible, move across the country, have a relationship with your son. That's what I'm saying. Let's keep it moving, Dad, for the sake of time. That question, what are 3 qualities young men should look for in a wife? I'm just gonna flat out ask it because that's the second question I read, and the individuals these women, the women these guys are dealing with, they've been a little toxic. So what are 3 qualities every man should look for in a wife?
Well, let's just get the first quality out of the way right then and there. Most men, the very first quality they want a trophy wife.
Absolutely.
I don't care. They want a trophy wife no matter what, hands down.
We want you to be pretty, ladies.
Yeah, with a nice body. We want you to look good. I don't care if you brown. I don't care if you red bone. I don't care if you light skin, caramel. You gotta have that pretty face, nice figure. All that stuff. And it doesn't last. Don't get me wrong. Those initial qualities will not last. You want a virtuous woman, like Proverbs 31 talks about. And so you want to make sure that you have a woman that is smart, because life is going to throw lemons at us. Life is going to throw all kinds of things. And you want someone that's going to be able to go with the flow. When you grow, you want to make sure she grows with you. And there's going to be many times you're going to grow together, and other times one's going to grow faster than the other one. So you want to make sure that she's smart, number 1. And number 2, you want to make sure that she loves God. And that should be number 1. Because if a person loves God and puts God first, then everything else, a threefold cord is hard to break. When a person puts God first, and then their partner, their spouse, that cord can't be broken. No matter how hard you try, you cannot break it. And she's going to show you that she loves God before, during the courtship, and after the marriage. And then number 3, she gotta be family oriented.
Yeah.
Because if a woman that is not family oriented, she's gonna pull you away from your family because she didn't have a family in her life. And so you want to make sure that she wants to make sure that she has time with her mom, her dad, if they're still alive, her siblings, her cousins, and you want to see how she nurtures other people and nurtures other little children, because you want to make sure that she's going to be a good mother to your children. Because remember, the very first mentors that children see is mom and dad.
Yep.
So yeah, you want to make sure she's smart. And that smart doesn't have to equate to having college degrees. It's just be smart. And if she's technically smart, good. If she's educationally smart, good. But you want someone that's smart, and she gotta love God. I mean, that's for me. Now there are people that don't care about religion and spirituality and stuff like that, but that is primary number one in my life. Me and my wife, me and your mom have been together these 42 plus years because of our walk with Christ. And every bed of roses has thorns. We've had our thorns, but through it all, the roses smell better than the feel of the thorns. And so, yeah, you gotta look good.
Yeah, you got to, ladies. Take it from this advice from my father. He was not always a spiritual guy. He's been on both sides of the tracks. As the very spiritual man and as the player and everything else, womanizer player. But at the end of the day, ladies, listen to what he's saying, and more important than my dudes out there, this is the same advice my father gave me about women. And as a happily married man who also was not always very spiritual, I can say that those are the things that have that's what led me back into the church. It's also what led me to my beautiful wife today and the mother of my child. So yeah, it's pretty much that. A great woman, I truly believe, a great woman will make an average man phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
A bad woman will make a great man terrible. Look at Will Smith. I hate to say it. And there are a lot of presidential candidates that say straight up, I never would have been a president of the United States if I did not marry the woman I married. Barack Obama actually said that about Michelle. And I think Reagan said that about his wife as well. So basically, people, who you marry, there are so many different elements about that are so important. One thing I want to ask you as well, Pops, racism. How would you explain because my son is obviously 3 months old, and I know how it was explained to me, but how would you explain stuff like slavery and the Trail of Bloody Tears and Breonna Taylor and Tamir Rice and Trayvon Martin and the Uvalde, Texas shooting? How do you explain America's racist past and racist present to your son or to your daughter? How do you explain racism to kids?
I think there's a whole lot of ways to talk to them about it. The very first way is, of course, is if they bring something up that looks unfair to them, and then you talk about it. And as I said before, many times the questions and the conversations should be had are uncomfortable to the parents and not the children. For instance, when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt, and we all know the story about the 40 years they spent in the wilderness and the 400 plus years they spent in Egypt. God told them while they were in Egypt, in slavery. God told them when they were in the wilderness, teach your children's children about what I have done for you, how I brought you out of the land of enslavement. That meant that these Israelites, not the current Israelis, but the Israelites that's a whole nother story. The Israelites were to tell their children about the atrocities that were done to them in Egypt, and also tell them how God brought them out through the miraculous, the 10 plagues and crossing the Red Sea and crossing the Jordan and all these things. So tell them about their captivity, about the racism and inequalities that they shared. And that is what they did even to today. The Israelites, the Jews, all the Hebrew nation tell their children about the inequalities of the past. And so when our children ask us these questions, tell them. If 5-year-old Jimmy says, Daddy, how come little Randy said that my skin is dark and it's dirty? Then you tell them why they feel that way, because stuff like that it's learned behavior. And say, well, little Jimmy has heard that, or little Randy has heard someone else say that, and so he's only repeating what he's heard. And all these killers that you've mentioned previously, they learned how to hate. They weren't born with that type of hatred in them. They learned that from someone else. Society taught them how to. So the way to deal with that is to be honest with the children and make sure everyone that's hearing this now and go back and listen to the recording, to give your children the talk. Give them the talk about when they are engaged with somebody. The number one thing, especially with law enforcement, because law enforcement does not live. Well, I do have one living in our neighborhood, but the point of the matter is, we don't have police officers for the most part living in our communities, and so when they're playing somewhere, don't make sudden moves like they have a weapon. If they're driving a car, be as polite as they can, and even still, that may not protect them. Even
hands on the steering wheel.
Like Lando Castile, he told the police officer that he had a license to carry a gun, and he still ended up dying. One of our grandsons, Micah and Maya, I took them swimming here in Greensboro at the big old pool that they have in Greensboro. And one of the little boys gave Micah a little water pistol to play with. I said, right in front of everybody, put that pistol down. And I said it with such authority. And I said, I don't want you picking up nothing like that. It wasn't like that when I was coming up. My mom and dad bought us guns and pistols, and we played cowboys and Indians, not knowing that the good guys wasn't always the cowboys, and the bad guys wasn't always Indians. So I was adamant about him not playing with a pistol because situations are heightened with people of color.
Let me chime in on that. So if anyone doesn't know, Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old African-American kid, I believe in either Cleveland or it's somewhere in Ohio. I forgot exactly where. He was playing with a toy gun, and a police officer who was deemed unqualified to be a police officer in the white county of this particular part of the state of Ohio, I believe. He was deemed unqualified, mentally incapable of being a cop. He got a job basically working in the black part of this county. And basically Tamir Rice, 12 years old, playing with a toy gun in a park. The cop drove by him, rolled the window down, shot him like it was a drive-by, and kept going. Literally, he didn't even get out of his car to arrest him. Nope. So that's basically sent the message with the black community that if we play with toy guns or water guns like we used to when I was little, police officers nowadays are just shooting kids. So I just want to say that because not all my listeners are familiar basically with the why you told Micah to put the toy gun down. Yep.
I wasn't playing because, like I said previously, we're born with two strikes. We're black and we're male. And our sisters are like that too. They're born with two strikes too. They're black and they're female.
Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor. And even he goes even beyond those individuals, Chris. Throughout this nation's history, we have been assassinated for the most part by, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, just stating the fact, by white males. White males have done so many atrocities to people of color, whether they were people that came through the North Atlantic slave trade, the Middle Passage, where they were indigenous people that were already here, where they came up from our southern borders, whether they came from the continent of Asia. The majority of the atrocities that have happened to people in America have been at the hand of our white mainstream American males. But that's not to say that all people are like that, but I'm just saying that we just have to teach our children that they have to be on their P's and Q's, their pints and quarts, whenever they are out in the open. And now the way that the climate is now, but it's always been like that. But in our generation, the way that the climate is right now, people have to be aware, and we have to, and every moment that we get to be a teaching moment, teach our children. And it's a sad state of affairs that some mothers and some fathers don't want to share these real life facts with their children. Children can handle them. Just tell them at the level that they can understand. And then as they get older,
I know with us, like you always talk, you push education, and the education was not necessarily 1 + 1 is 2 or calculus or algebra or American history. Basically like science. A lot of it was, okay, read this book, find out who Medgar Evers was, write a term paper on Sojourner Truth, write a term paper basically on Harriet Tubman. Okay, Martin Luther King did this. You need to read basically about Stokely Carmichael. Mm-hmm. We were taught African American history, and my son is he's half Trinidadian, half Indian, and he's obviously also half black. I'm going to have him learning about great Indian mathematicians and great Trinidadian astrologers and stuff like that. Learn the history, people, because there's so much more to education than basically just getting a college degree or just getting a high school diploma.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
2 questions people just asked me. I'm a father. I have an 11-month-old son, and my wife is 4 months pregnant with our second son. What are 3 pieces of advice you would give me about raising them? Because I've been enjoying this conversation. And what are 3 books you would tell me to read? So 3 bits of advice and 3 books you would tell them to read.
Just be a leader in your home. Be a secular leader. Be a religious leader. Lead by example. In a positive light. Protect your children and provide for them. Those are the 3 qualities. I mean, if you do those 3 things and you leave everything else into God's hands, your children are going to be all right. They're going to be all right.
And 3 books.
I go back to the ones I mentioned before. As a Christian, because I'm a Christian, I always use my foundational book as the Bible. And all through the majority of my adult life, I've always read the King James Version. But there are other versions. There's the New International Version. There's a 20th Century Version. There's a New Living Translation. There's the NASB. There's so many different ones. The Good News. There's so many other Bibles that bring the these and the thous into the language that we understand today. So my number 1 would be reading the Bible. And then if you really want to understand how people of color contributed to reading, to the writing and the listening of the Bible, there's an older book, a gentleman by the name of Dr. William Emanuel. He wrote a book called People of Color in the Bible. It goes from Adam and Eve all the way up to Paul, because I don't take nothing away from the writers, but let's face it, Cleopatra did not look like Elizabeth Taylor. Delilah did not look like Hedy Lamarr, whatever her name was. I remember what her name was. Queen of Sheba, all these people. Even Abraham and David. Rahab was from the Canaanite family. I mean,
she was a Moabitess.
I mean, so this guy, and there are other people that do the same thing, but Dr. William Emanuel broke it down. He shows the genealogy, which is in the Table of Nations in Genesis 10. He breaks down a genealogy of Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Japheth, and Ham, and it shows all their genealogy right now. Even right now, you can find out where Cush's people are right now. You can find out where Jacob's twin brother Esau's descendants are right now.
Hey, Pops, plug the name of that book again, because I'm pretty sure people are going to be buying it. Plug the name of that book again.
It's called People of Color in the Bible.
Gotcha.
By Dr. William Emanuel, and he's probably wrote it back in the 90s or the 2000s. And so that book and others have jumped. When I first read that book, and I read other books like Sabbath Roots and other people that wrote about people of color in the Bible, it just opened up my eyes to all the things that I was questioning, because I questioned, why does Jesus look like a European? When he came, when the Bible, his lineage in Matthew chapter 1 and his lineage in Luke chapter 3 does not even have this a Japheth's ancestry in it. It has Shem
the fact
and Ham's.
You can't be a blonde, blue-eyed guy hiding in Egypt.
Nope.
I was in Egypt for 2 weeks, people. It's just that I was a couple shades darker. You cannot be a blonde-haired, blue-eyed European hiding in Egypt. It's not possible.
And then not only that, the people, when they had to escape Israel, they didn't go northeast to northwest to Europe. They went southwest to Africa.
To Africa, yep.
And as a matter of fact, until the 1500s, I'm getting off the subject here, the whole continent of Africa included the Middle East. It's just that when Europeans, because of a certain edict, they divided the world, and they made that part they called it the Middle East. But getting back to his the Bible is number 1, because there are so many foundational truths in the Bible that has principles about disciplining your child, finding the right kind of spouse, putting your gifts and your talents before God so he can put you before great people, making your enemies your footstools. A young man who says he wants to see his son because his mother across the country won't let him do that. Use God's word and says, Lord, you saved me. I can't do anything about that because it's by grace that I'm saved. But because of you saving me, I'm dedicating my life to you. And in my dedicating my life to you, I want to see my child open up this door that they think they've closed for me. There's nothing too hard for God. Nothing too hard for God. I mentioned the millionaire next door. We have people that have been living. We have traveled all over the world, and we live in 3 continents of the 7 continents. We have had people that looked poor, but they were rich, and we had people that were balling, but they were living from paycheck to paycheck. And so the millionaire next door talks about stuff like that. And when you make that money,
give back.
Don't make debt. One of the other things, thanks Chris for saying, one of the other things in their educational bringing is one of God's principles is the tithing system. And I know a lot of people say, why should I give to the church? Because they ain't gonna do nothing but mess it up. It's not your money anyway. God gave you the ability to make that money. We had them whenever they did get allowances, because they didn't get them all the time because we didn't pay them for what they were supposed to do anyway. They were supposed to do that because that's what they were required to do. But we did get them allowances from time to time. And when Chris sold his candy, when they made their money, they had to make sure that 10 cents out of every dollar, they had to return back a tithe to God, a 10th of that portion to God. And then they had to save the other 90%. They had to save that half, and then the other 50% they could do what they want to do with it. And we taught them that when you make money, you don't let it burn holes in your pocket, like my father used to say. Money does not have to burn holes in your pocket. Use it, and and every time you get a raise, you don't have to make a debt. If you lived off of that money before you got that 5%, 3%, or 10% increase, use something else with it. Invest it. Use some of the principles that Chris has talked about. Invested in real estate, invested in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, HSAs, ESAs, Roth or traditional IRAs, cryptocurrency, anything but make sure that whatever you invest in, that you do your due diligence to make sure that you know what you're investing in, what you're doing.
Make sure you understand it.
Because many entertainers before the Magic Johnsons and the Bill Cosby's of the world, they died broke until they realized that these accountants and these financial advisors was living up on the hill while they was going broke. So understand what you do when you invest it. Understand the risk. If you can't stand to do the risk, don't do the investment. But number one, knowledge is power. And then the last book, and these are older books, and there are so many other books that you can just Google how to be rich, how to be successful, how to get a good mindset. The other one is The Richest Man in Babylon. The Richest Man in Babylon. And this just talks about, oh man, this guy was so wealthy. And then there was another one.
I love that book because it's just simple, everyday advice. It was written, they say, roughly 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, before Babylon, I think, became even an empire. But it's crazy because 7,000 years later, that book is still just as relevant today.
Amen.
I believe they actually found the original manuscript written on papyrus stones under Egypt, basically somewhere in the Middle East.
Yep.
But the book is almost 7,000 years old, and it's still timeless today. In regards to what my dad was saying, there were periods of my life I did not tithe. I can honestly say, to keep it a buck, to keep it real, throughout the most successful periods of my life was when I was legitimately giving money to charity or to a church. And just like I say on my channel, everybody, max out your 401ks, max out your Roth IRAs, basically start a 529 college savings fund. When you make your money, basically figure out ways to basically invest that money and invest in things that you know. If I were to answer your question, bro, in regards to the books that you should read, I believe that everybody should know their history. So I'm gonna tell you a book that I think you should read. It's kind of a pain-free, but you need to read it. Is The New Jim Crow. That's one book.
By Michelle Alexander.
Exactly. That book's gonna kind of make you mad, but I think it's something that everybody, regardless of the color of your skin, should read, so that you can kind of see how institutionalized racism works. Because I think that you also need to look into the future. I would say another dope book you should read is Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. Phenomenal book. you kind of have to kind of understand finance a little bit to get it, but he has a lot of really good advice or whatever, as far as, okay, these are good things to invest in. And our book I just finished recently reading that I think everyone should read is also called Thou Shalt Prosper. It's written by a gentleman who I think he's a Jewish gentleman. He kind of talks about basically why certain communities are flourishing and why other communities kind of don't. And a lot of times, it honestly is, certain communities are kind of together, kind of like how you described it back in the 1960s. So that's kind of how I would describe that. Next question, this gentleman asked me, this one's kind of deep because I've been there, done that. My grandmother and aunts raised me in Memphis, Tennessee, and I grew up in the church. I left church for over a decade, but I recently started coming back when I turned 30. My grandmother and aunts were phenomenal women. They were feminine, they were in shape, they were healthy, they were friendly, and they were just great women all around. I want to get married, but the women that I'm meeting at church today, the women I'm meeting online, the women I'm meeting at bars and lounges and clubs in Memphis, they are literally nothing like the grandmothers or aunts who raised me from 2 generations ago. Essentially, the women I meet today, they're just not wives. What advice would you give me about dating and about finding a wife?
Number one, stop going to those places.
He said church too, though. He did say church too, to keep it honest.
Number two, work on yourself. And a lot of times we want to get married sooner than we should. And so we go out looking for someone, and trust me, all that glitters is not gold. And so the best thing that the gentleman can do is stay in church. Ask God to send him that virtuous woman. And before he knows it, one day he'll look up and there'll be a sparkle in his eye, there'll be a sparkle in her eye, and then the rest is history. Work, like you said, be the best version of himself. Work on all his skill sets. Work on his manhood. Work on his occupation. Work on serving God in spirit and in truth. And when you do that, God says, when you walk uprightly before me, no good thing will I withhold from you. And he who finds a wife finds a good thing and finds favor of the Lord. And so if he really wants a woman that is going to be his help meet, that's not going to lead and not going to follow, but is going to be right there at his side, seek God first and his righteousness, and then all these other things will be added unto him. And I know I'm trying to I'm all spiritualizing it away, but when we follow God, then everything else he'll make everything else ready and available for us. Because if we do it our way, many times we mess up, and God is there to pick us up, but we still have to deal with the consequences of what we've done. The sin is forgiven, the mess up is forgiven, but the consequences are still there to be taken care of. But God will still be with you in the consequences. Yeah. So my advice to him is keep on doing what he's doing, and then one day that woe man is going to walk into his life, like Adam said, woman, woe man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro, I've been there, done that. I know what you mean. Left the church, came back, and was like, wow, this is what I have to pick from. I hate to keep it honest, but I was blown away at, like, kind of just, I would say, the lack of whatever that I was seeing at church. I'll say this, bro. First off, take care of your body. Women, generally speaking, like men who are in shape, because that means your vitality, your testosterone, you can protect them. So take care of your body. Women like a man, basically, they want to see a trophy too. They want to feel protected. So take care of your body. I'll also say, bro, work on yourself, your finances and everything, whether you want to admit it or not. Guys that generally speaking have more discretionary income and who can provide for a woman and for a family, that makes women feel comfortable. So work on yourself, work on your finances. I also say be patient. Let's be honest, it just flat out aren't a lot of, well, I don't know how to say it. I'll say that from my experience of looking anyway, when I did come back into the church and I did get serious about, I got tired doing the stupid stuff and I got serious about looking for a wife. It took me 7 years to find her. So it takes a while. I just did not find a lot of quality women in the same place as you were going. I didn't see a lot of quality ones, unfortunately, at church. I didn't see a lot of quality. I definitely was not meeting a lot of quality ones at clubs or even at lounges and stuff like that. So you got to be patient. And the last thing, bro, I'll say is this, as my dad said, just continue going to churches, because I think that better women in general are at those institutions. You said you grew up in the church. I would say continue to go there, because eventually you are going to meet a woman, just like I did, who was pretty much everything that you prayed for. And when you meet her, you're going to say, you know what? you're gonna know. Whether she knows that or not, you gotta still put in the work, but you're gonna know when you meet her. You're gonna know when you meet her. So, yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so we are getting short on time. So there's 2 other questions I want to ask you. My dad was never in my life. I did some bad things when I was a teenager and I got locked up. My baby mama got pregnant right before I went in, and I recently got out of prison a few months ago. My son is 7 years old now. My ex is married and I'm in trade school to be an electrician. I never knew my father and I want to rekindle a relationship with my son, but he has never seen me and he does not know me. Should I reach out to my baby mother and should I rekindle a relationship with my son? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely. The only thing, we have not because we ask not. If he wants to reach out to his son, by all means, do that. And if the door is open, great. And if the door is not open, find out what the challenges are, and then go back and then rethink his approach. If the mother says no, or the mother's been remarried or whatever, then it's not about trying to rekindle a flame with her. It's about only just trying to make sure he has a relationship with his son. And a lot of times when children are born like that, there is challenges if there's another person involved, a third person. So the young man he'll have to go back and figure out how can he approach them without threatening the new boyfriend or the husband, without kindling up old challenges and issues of the past, because we can't bring the past back. The past is there, leave it in the past, and just go from there. And the best he can do is, as we have said throughout this podcast, is to be the best version of himself, to present himself, to let her know that he's not there to threaten her or her stability with her son. He's only there to give more experience and more knowledge and awareness of the boy's father's side of his genealogy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
bro. I agree with that. Just because in the industry that I work in, I work with a lot of I work with a good amount of guys who have criminal records. And what's actually interesting, as a mechanical engineer, I can say this: some of the best individuals I've ever met in my life do have criminal records, and I'm just being completely honest with that. And some of the worst individuals I've met are Ivy League educated engineers. And I'm not talking about like bad as far as like how I'm just talking as far as not being a good human being. Some of the worst people I've met are college educated, and some of the absolute best human beings I've met did make some mistakes when they were younger, and they have a criminal record because of it. So just because you went to prison, that doesn't make you a bad person. If you want to have a relationship with your son, bro, definitely pursue that. It's one of those kind of things where I think every son needs to know their father. And if you're a baby, and if your son's mother has remarried, just be respectful to her spouse. And basically let him know, look, I'm not trying to step on your toes or anything, but that's my son. I want to have a relationship with him. And I think respectfully, man to man, that guy, hopefully he's not gonna have an issue with that. So I would say definitely that you should pursue a relationship with your son. Just because you went to prison, it doesn't make you a bad person.
Okay. Especially if he was a young person, because many individuals, no matter what their culture or ethnicity is, their minds are not even mature until they get 25. The problem is with people of color, the book is thrown at us. For instance, I got one of my childhood friends. He was sharing with me about 2 months ago, where another one of our friends went to jail for 8 years for a 6-month offense. And so, and we all grew up together. But I said that to say this, is that he's not the same person he was back then. We change and we mature. You know, Muhammad Ali says, if a person's doing the same thing they did 50 years ago, they haven't grown any. And so people make mistakes. Human beings do human things. And like you said, do it. The only thing you can do is get turned down and then keep on trying until he succeeds. And ask God to open up them doors for him.
Absolutely. That is absolutely. What is something that you think a father can teach their sons or daughters that a mother can't teach their son or daughter?
My mother, real quick, like I said before, single parents have raised outstanding children, whether they were male or female. My mom and dad said before they passed, they said, we taught our boys how to become men and taught our daughters how to become women. Um, there's just some innate things that testosterone has to be taught by testosterone, and there's certain things that estrogen has to be taught by estrogen, and so I really don't have a specific answer for that question, Chris, because I'm thinking about that. I'm saying, what can we teach them other than how to be men and how to be leaders, providers, and protectors? Yeah. And mothers teach their daughters how to be nurturers.
Yeah, I would answer that question this way. I very clearly am a man. I have a son. I can teach my son how to be a man. I don't necessarily think my wife can teach my son how to be a man because she's not a man. If I have a little girl, if God blesses us with a daughter next, I'm gonna do everything I possibly can to say, this is how a man should treat you. If a guy should open the door, in my opinion, a guy should pay for the dates. A guy should protect you. You should always feel safe when you're around him. But trust and believe, I can't tell her what it's like to be in love with a man. I can't tell her what it's like to be a woman. I can't teach her how to be a woman because I'm not a woman, I'm a man. So I do think that there is some intrinsic value about having a father and a mother in your life, because there's certain things I can clearly go to my father about women that I can talk to my mom about it too, but it'd be a little weird. There's things about my dad I can talk to him about what it's like being a black man and I get pulled over by the police. And that's a different conversation than when I talk to my mom about being pulled over by the police, just because I've been in situations where I've had a woman in the car with me and the cops pulled me over and I've been by myself. And it's a very different experience if you're pulled over and you have a woman in the car with you. The cops are a little nicer. So it's like different things that I think that there's nothing good or bad about it. There's just certain things that a man can teach a boy that I think a woman, she's just not biologically wired to do that. And I think there's certain things that a woman can teach her daughter that as a man, if I have a daughter, I'm never going to be able to teach my daughter that kind of stuff. That's how I would answer that question. My last question for you, Dad, because I want to be respectful of your time. When God calls you home and your time on earth is past, what do you want your legacy to be?
That I was a great father and husband. And even before that I loved God. And because I loved God, and because I knew that I had life eternal in the there and the then, and I had life abundantly here and the now, that because of that, I did all that I could to render service to him and to other people. So number one, that I loved God, and I did the best I could with faults and with mistakes to be the best husband and the best father that I could be. And then third, to leave an inheritance to my children's children, because it takes about 3 generations for wealth to grow. And so not just material wealth, but also spiritual wealth. I want my children's children to know that their grandfather prayed for them, that their grandmother prayed for them, that their grandfather went out of his way to make sure that they had it easier in life than he had it in life. Although they are going to have their generational challenges, like every generation has their challenges. So the 3 things: that I loved God, that I tried to be the best version of myself when it came to be a husband and a father, to train y'all up in the way that you should go, so that when you got older, you wouldn't depart from it. And then, of course, lastly, leave an inheritance to my children's children.
Absolutely. I love that. Your kids, they all became high-level professionals. All of us are dominating corporate America. All of us are healthy. All of us are athletic. All of us take care of our bodies. All of us are pillars in our community, and all of us are doing extremely well things. We are essentially the kind of people that America literally never, we're the kind of Black people that America never shows on television. And I want to thank you guys, your mom, for that. The reason why I turned down offers to sell drugs when I was in high school from guys that wanted me to sell drugs. The reason why I basically I turned down offers to join gangs when I was getting recruited to join gangs in my early teenage years and late teens and stuff like that. The reason why I became an engineer, the reason why I don't got baby mamas all over the place, the reason why I have never been inside of a prison outside of one that I was designing for the engineering firms that I work for, is because of my parents, because of my dad. Thank you, Dad, for that. You weren't always perfect. I know I was absolutely a terrible bad kid a lot of the times, but I became the man that I became because of you and because of moms. And I think that if more men in general had fathers and had parents like you all, I think the country would be a lot better off. And it scares me that our society is trying to essentially take men like you out of the community and out of the household. And I think that if we do that, it's going to have hellish effects on America. So thank you for this podcast, Dad. I think you and Mom honestly should go ahead and write a book about how to raise men, because y'all did a damn good job. I don't mind saying that. And I love you. And yeah, this channel, Financipation, it's all about making money. It's all about saving money. It's all about building generational wealth. And it's all about financially emancipating yourself from generational poverty. This is one of those videos I think we're going to be watching it for decades, okay? I love you.
Enjoy Father's Day. To America, enjoy Juneteenth. And I'm going to celebrate my birthday.
Yep. And kudos to moms too, because we're going to be doing a Mother's Day one as well. So take a look for that one, okay?
Okay.
Take a look for that one. All right, everybody. It's your boy, Chris. I'm out. Take care, everybody. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Peace.
Love you, Chris. Give my grandson a big old hug and a kiss for me.
Will do. Take care, Dad. Love you. Peace. Bye.
Love you too.